The Galactic Academy's corridors buzzed with the usual chatter of 1,000 different species, their voices creating a symphony of alien languages that would overwhelm most beings. Among the towering Krillian warriors with their crystalline armor, the graceful ethereal telepaths floating inches above the ground, and the hulking Bovarian engineers whose footsteps shook the metal floors, a small figure moved almost invisibly through the crowd. Maya Chen kept her head down, clutching her datapad against her chest as she navigated the bustling hallway. Her black hair fell like a curtain around her face, hiding the keen intelligence that sparkled in her dark eyes. To the casual observer, she appeared to be just another timid human student, perhaps lost or overwhelmed by the grandeur of the most prestigious military academy in the known galaxy. The academy had been established after the formation of the Galactic Defense Alliance, bringing together the finest military minds from across 47 different worlds. Each species contributed their unique strengths to the collective defense against the growing threat of the Void Hunters, a mysterious race that consumed entire star systems. Humans had only recently joined the Alliance, and their inclusion had been met with considerable skepticism. "Look at that one," sneered Vextar, a reptilian cadet whose scales shifted from green to aggressive red. His forked tongue flicked out as he gestured toward Maya. "The humans send us their weakest specimens. How do they expect to contribute to our defense forces when their warriors look like frightened children?" His companion, a massive Ursoid named Gromak, chuffed in amusement. "Perhaps they believe their soft appearance will confuse enemies into lowering their guard? A questionable strategy at best." Maya heard every word but continued walking, her expression unchanged. She had grown accustomed to such comments during her 3 months at the academy. Most alien species judged capability by size, aggression, or obvious physical prowess. Humans, particularly those who appeared young and unassuming, were often dismissed as inferior. The combat theory classroom was located in the Academy's central tower, a massive structure that stretched toward the artificial sky of the station. Maya slipped into the back row, choosing a seat where she could observe without drawing attention. The room gradually filled with cadets from various species, each clustering with their own kind. The natural segregation wasn't born of malice, but rather comfort. It was easier to communicate and relate to those who shared similar biology and cultural backgrounds. Professor Kethvar entered with the fluid grace typical of his species, the Aquarians. His translucent skin showed the bioluminescent patterns that indicated his advanced age and wisdom. Multiple sensory organs along his elongated head tracked every movement in the classroom as he began his lecture. "Today we will examine the Battle of Sigma Prime," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through specialized translators that converted his aquatic speech patterns into audible words for air-breathing species. This engagement marked the first major victory against the Void Hunters, achieved through the combined efforts of multiple Alliance species. A holographic display materialized above the professor's desk, showing a three-dimensional recreation of a massive space battle. Ships from dozens of different civilizations engaged against the distinctive black vessels of the Void Hunters, their hulls seeming to absorb light itself. The Krillian Empire provided heavy assault cruisers, Professor Kethvar continued as the relevant ships highlighted in blue. Their crystalline armor proved resistant to Void Hunter energy weapons. The Ethereal Collective contributed their psychic warfare specialists, disrupting enemy communications. The Bovarian Republic's Engineering Corps maintained our fleet's functionality under extreme combat conditions. Maya watched intently as the battle played out, her mind automatically analyzing tactical decisions, fleet positioning, and the timing of various maneuvers. She noticed several points where the Alliance forces could have achieved victory more efficiently, but she remained silent. Speaking up would only draw unwanted attention. Each species contributed according to their natural strengths, the professor emphasized, This diversity of capabilities allowed us to overcome an enemy that had previously been unstoppable. However, coordination between such different species remains our greatest challenge. A Krillian cadet raised one of his 4 arms, the crystalline structure catching the classroom's artificial light. Professor, what role did the humans play in this battle? I see no mention of them in the tactical reports. Several students turned to look at Maya, the only human present. She felt their gazes but kept her attention focused on her notes, writing in the compact script that allowed humans to store vast amounts of information in small spaces. Professor Kethvar's bioluminescent patterns shifted to what those familiar with Aquarian expressions would recognize as mild discomfort. The humans had not yet joined the Alliance during the Battle of Sigma Prime. Their inclusion is relatively recent. Recent and questionable, muttered Zephylos, a tall, plant-like being whose bark-covered skin rustled with disapproval. Their physical capabilities are unremarkable. They possess no natural armor, limited sensory organs, and their technology is centuries behind most Alliance members. What possible contribution could they make to our defense forces? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Maya's grip on her stylus tightened slightly, but her expression remained neutral. She had heard variations of this criticism countless times, not just at the Academy, but throughout human space as their species struggled to find its place among the galactic community. Perhaps, offered a melodious voice from near the front, their value lies not in obvious strengths, but in unexpected capabilities. The speaker was Lyranus, an ethereal whose gossamer wings shimmered with iridescent colors. As a psychic species, the ethereals often perceived nuances that others missed. Vextar's scales shifted to a deeper red, indicating heightened aggression. Unexpected capabilities? They are slow, weak, and fragile. Their lifespans are brief, making extensive training investments questionable. Their home world is a death trap of competing ecosystems and violent weather patterns. How such a species even achieves space travel remains a mystery. Their home world's harsh conditions might explain their adaptability, Professor Kethvar interjected diplomatically. Survival on such a planet would require considerable resourcefulness. Resourcefulness is not the same as military prowess, Gromak rumbled. In battle, you need strength, speed, and the ability to endure damage. Humans possess none of these qualities in significant measure. Maya continued taking notes, her writing becoming slightly more forceful as she pressed the stylus against her datapad. Around her, the debate about human capabilities continued, with various species offering their assessments of her people's weaknesses. None spoke in her defense, but she hadn't expected them to. Respect was something that had to be earned, not given freely. The class period ended with Professor Kethvar assigning a tactical analysis of the Sigma Prime battle, with particular focus on how different species' abilities complemented each other. As students began filing out, Maya remained seated, waiting for the crowd to thin before making her exit. "Miss Chen," Professor Kethvar called as she stood to leave. "A moment, if you please." Maya approached the professor's desk, her posture respectful but not submissive. Up close, the Aquarian's bioluminescent patterns were more complex, indicating emotional states that most non-aquatic species couldn't interpret. "I want you to know that your tactical analyses have been exemplary," he said quietly. "Your understanding of multidimensional combat scenarios exceeds that of most senior cadets." "Thank you, Professor," Maya replied, her voice soft but clear. "However," he continued, "I notice you never participate in class discussions, even when your written work suggests you have valuable insights to contribute. The Academy values diverse perspectives, and yours would be welcome." Maya considered her response carefully. "I prefer to observe and learn, Professor. My classmates have extensive military backgrounds and combat experience. I'm still catching up to their level of knowledge." Professor Kethvar's patterns shifted in what might have been concern. Do not underestimate yourself, Miss Chen. Intelligence and analytical ability are as valuable as physical prowess in modern warfare. Perhaps more so. As Maya left the classroom, she reflected on the professor's words. Intelligence and analytical ability were indeed valuable, but the galactic military establishment still operated on traditional concepts of warrior strength, until someone demonstrated that humans could fight as effectively as any other species. They would remain relegated to support roles and administrative positions. The Academy's training facilities occupied several levels of the station, each designed to accommodate different species' needs and abilities. Maya made her way to the human section, a modest area that reflected their recent addition to the Academy's roster. The gym equipment looked standard, designed for baseline humanoid physiology without the specialized modifications needed for other species. 3 other human cadets were present when she arrived. James Morrison, a former Earth Defense Force pilot whose easy smile masked a sharp strategic mind. Sarah Kim, whose expertise in xenobiology had earned her a place in the Academy's research division. And David Rodriguez, whose mechanical aptitude rivaled that of most Bovarian engineers. "How was combat theory today?" James asked as Maya began her stretching routine. "Educational," she replied neutrally. Sarah looked up from her study materials. "Let me guess. Another discussion about human inadequacy in military applications?" "The usual concerns about our physical limitations and lack of natural weaponry," Maya confirmed. David snorted while adjusting the weights on a resistance machine. "They should see what humans can do when we stop playing nice, but apparently we're supposed to prove ourselves through proper channels and Academy protocols." "Patience," Maya said quietly. "Opportunities will present themselves." Her 3 companions exchanged glances. They had served with Maya during the selection process that brought them to the Academy, and they had witnessed capabilities that their alien classmates couldn't imagine. But Maya had insisted on maintaining a low profile, claiming that premature revelation would be counterproductive. "Speaking of opportunities," James said, "have you heard about the upcoming war games? Multi-species teams, realistic combat scenarios, and performance evaluations that will determine our final Academy rankings." Maya paused in her stretching. "Details?" "Next month," Sarah answered. "Mixed teams of 8 cadets each, representing different species. The scenario involves defending a colony world against Void Hunter assault forces. Full tactical command rotation, real equipment, and live fire exercises." "Injuries expected," David added grimly. "The Academy wants to see how different species perform under actual combat stress." Maya resumed her routine, but her mind was already analyzing possibilities. War games would provide the perfect opportunity to demonstrate human capabilities without appearing to challenge the established hierarchy directly. Success would speak louder than any classroom debate. That evening, Maya sat in her small quarters, reviewing tactical manuals and battle histories. Her personal data pad contained far more information than standard Academy materials, detailed analyses of human military doctrine, psychological warfare principles, and combat strategies that had been developed during humanity's violent history. While other species had evolved past their primitive aggressive phases, humans had refined the art of warfare to a degree that few galactic civilizations could comprehend. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Maya opened the communication to find orders for the War Games team assignments. She scanned the list until she found her name. Team 7, commanded by Cadet Vextar of the Reptilian Commonwealth. Maya smiled for the first time that day. The irony was perfect. She would serve under the very cadet who had questioned human military value that morning. Team 7 included representatives from 6 different species, each selected for their supposed expertise in various combat roles. Maya had been assigned as support specialist, a vague designation that essentially meant she would handle logistics and communications while the real warriors engaged in combat. She began researching her teammates, accessing their academy records and performance evaluations. Each cadet excelled in areas that reflected their species' natural advantages. Vextar possessed the rapid reflexes and predatory instincts of his people. Gromak brought Ursoid strength and durability. Zephylos contributed plant-like regeneration and photosynthetic endurance. Lyranus offered ethereal psychic abilities and tactical perception. The remaining team members included Thorek, a dwarvoid mining specialist whose people had adapted to high-gravity environments, and Kesara, a feline hunter whose species had evolved perfect night vision and silent movement capabilities. Each possessed obvious qualifications for their assigned roles. Maya closed her datapad and prepared for sleep. Tomorrow would begin 3 weeks of intensive team training before the actual war games commenced. Her teammates would expect her to demonstrate whatever modest capabilities humans could contribute to their collective effort. They had no idea what they were about to witness. The human section of the academy grew quiet as the artificial night cycle dimmed the corridor lighting. Maya lay in her narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling while her mind processed the challenges ahead. She had spent months observing alien military doctrine, studying their tactics, and identifying weaknesses in their approach to warfare. The upcoming war games would finally allow her to implement strategies that her human mind had been developing since her arrival. Her alien classmates saw a shy, inadequate creature who had somehow gained admission to their prestigious institution. Tomorrow, they would begin learning the truth about humanity's capacity for warfare, not through arrogant displays or aggressive posturing, but through the quiet competence that had allowed her species to survive on a world that considered them prey. Maya Chen closed her eyes and began the mental exercises that would prepare her for the battles ahead. The galaxy was about to discover why evolution had forged humans in the crucible of Earth's endless conflicts. They would learn that sometimes the most dangerous predators were those who appeared to be prey. The War Games training facility stretched across an entire deck of the Academy station, its vast chambers capable of simulating dozens of different planetary environments. Team 7 gathered in the briefing room, where holographic displays showed their assigned practice scenarios. Maya arrived precisely on time, carrying her standard equipment pack and maintaining the same quiet demeanor that had characterized her academy experience. Vextar stood at the head of the table, his scales displaying the confident green patterns that indicated leadership among his species. His reptilian eyes swept over each team member as he began outlining their training schedule. "We have 21 days to achieve tactical cohesion," he announced, his forked tongue flicking with each sibilant sound. "Our success will depend on each member fulfilling their designated role without deviation from established protocols." The team's assignments reflected typical galactic military thinking. Gromak would serve as heavy assault, using his massive frame and natural armor to breach enemy positions. Zephylos would provide sustained support, his plant-based physiology allowing him to maintain combat effectiveness longer than most species. Thorek would handle demolitions and structural weaknesses, while Kesara would gather intelligence through stealth reconnaissance. Lyranus would coordinate psychic warfare and communication, her ethereal abilities making her invaluable for battlefield awareness. Vextar reserved tactical command for himself, trusting in reptilian strategic thinking and rapid decision-making. "Maya Chen," he said, consulting his datapad, "you will maintain equipment functionality and establish communication links with command. Your secondary role involves medical support and logistical coordination." Maya nodded silently, accepting the assignment without comment. Her teammates seemed satisfied with the arrangement, each confident that their natural abilities would carry the team to victory. None questioned why the human had been included, assuming she fulfilled some administrative requirement for species diversity. Their first training exercise took place in a simulated urban environment, complete with damaged buildings, debris-filled streets, and concealed enemy positions. The scenario required them to secure a communication hub while defending against automated attack drones programmed to mimic Void Hunter tactics. Maya followed behind the main assault force, carrying communication equipment and medical supplies. She observed as her teammates employed their species' traditional combat approaches, noting both strengths and critical weaknesses in their methodology. Gromak charged directly at enemy positions, his thick hide absorbing damage while he overwhelmed opponents through sheer force. Effective, but predictable. Vextar used rapid movement and precision strikes, exploiting his quick reflexes to avoid incoming fire while eliminating targets. Skilled, but focused on individual achievement rather than coordinated tactics. Zephylos established a defensive perimeter, his root-like appendages anchoring him in place while his bark-covered torso weathered enemy attacks. Thorek systematically demolished obstacles, creating clear paths for advancement. Kesara moved through shadows, gathering intelligence on enemy positions with predatory patience. Lyranis floated above the battlefield, her psychic abilities detecting enemy movements and coordinating team communications. Her gossamer wings made her highly visible but provided tactical awareness that proved invaluable. The exercise concluded successfully, with Team 7 achieving their objectives within acceptable parameters. However, Maya had identified numerous inefficiencies that could be exploited by intelligent opponents. Her alien teammates congratulated themselves on a competent performance, unaware of how vulnerable their traditional tactics had left them. During the debriefing session, Vextar reviewed their performance with obvious satisfaction. "Acceptable coordination for our first exercise," he declared. Each species contributed according to their natural strengths, achieving tactical objectives through proven methods. The enemy drones were somewhat predictable, Thorek rumbled, his gravelly voice echoing in the briefing room. Real Void Hunters might present greater challenges, which is why we will continue training until our responses become instinctive, Vextar replied. Muscle memory and species-specific talents will overcome any tactical surprises. Maya raised her hand slightly, a gesture so subtle that several teammates almost missed it. Vextar's scales shifted to mild yellow, indicating annoyance at the interruption. "Yes, Chen?" "I noticed some potential improvements in our approach," Maya said quietly. "Small adjustments that might enhance our effectiveness." Gromak chuffed in amusement. "The logistics specialist has tactical suggestions? How unexpected." "Speak," Vextar commanded, his tone suggesting he expected little of value. Maya activated a holographic display, showing a replay of their recent exercise. "Our formation leaves the flanks exposed during Gromak's frontal assaults. While his direct approach is effective, it draws all enemy attention to a single point, allowing them to concentrate fire." She highlighted specific moments during the battle, pointing out instances where enemy drones had nearly exploited the formation's weaknesses. Additionally, our communication protocols rely heavily on Lyranis' psychic abilities. If she becomes incapacitated, we lose battlefield coordination. The replay continued, showing how their predictable tactics had allowed enemy forces to anticipate their movements. "Finally, we're not utilizing concealment effectively. Our approaches follow standard military doctrine, which works against conventional opponents, but might be less effective against adaptive enemies." Vexitar's scales darkened to deep orange, indicating skepticism. "These observations assume our opponents possess greater intelligence than typical automated systems. Standard formations exist because they work." "Against standard opponents," Maya agreed, "but Void Hunters have demonstrated the ability to learn and adapt." They might exploit predictable tactics. Lyronis's wings shimmered with interest. The human raises valid points. Adaptation has been a hallmark of Void Hunter strategy in previous encounters. Perhaps, Zephylos acknowledged, his bark-like skin rustling. But changing proven methods carries risks. Better to perfect our current approach than experiment with untested concepts. Maya nodded, accepting their decision without argument. She had planted the seeds of doubt, which would grow as training continued and their weaknesses became more apparent. Direct challenges to alien military doctrine would only provoke resistance, but demonstrated failures might open minds to alternative approaches. Their second training exercise took place in a dense forest environment, where enemy forces used guerrilla tactics instead of direct confrontation. The scenario required Team 7 to locate and secure 3 strategic objectives while avoiding ambush attacks. Maya observed as her teammates struggled with the changed parameters. Their traditional formations proved cumbersome among the thick vegetation, and their reliance on direct assault became a liability when enemies refused to engage in open combat. Grommak's size made him highly visible and vulnerable to hit-and-run attacks. Vexitar's rapid movements, so effective in open terrain, were hampered by branches and undergrowth. Even Kessara found her stealth capabilities challenged by enemies who used the forest's natural concealment. The exercise ended in partial failure, with Team 7 achieving only 2 of their 3 objectives, while suffering casualties that would have been fatal in real combat. The debriefing session was notably less celebratory than after their first success. Environmental factors proved more challenging than anticipated, Vextar admitted, his scales displaying subdued colors. Dense terrain limits the effectiveness of our preferred tactics. The enemy's refusal to engage directly was frustrating, Grommak growled. Honorable combat requires opponents who stand and fight. Maya listened to their analysis, noting how each species interpreted the failure through their own cultural lens. Reptilians saw it as a tactical puzzle to be solved through superior strategy. Ursoids viewed it as a matter of opponents lacking courage for direct confrontation. Plant beings considered it an environmental adaptation challenge. None recognized the fundamental flaw in their approach. They were fighting as individuals using species-specific tactics rather than as a coordinated unit employing combined arms doctrine. Each team member excelled at their personal strengths but failed to integrate those abilities into a cohesive battle plan. Perhaps we should consider alternative approaches, Lyronis suggested tentatively. The humans' earlier observations about adaptation seem relevant to our current difficulties. Vextar's gaze fixed on Maya, his reptilian features unreadable. You were notably quiet during the exercise, Chen. No suggestions for improvement this time? Maya looked up from her notes, meeting his stare with calm composure. You asked me to maintain communications and provide logistical support. That's what I did. And your assessment of our performance? You achieved 2 of 3 objectives under challenging conditions, Maya replied diplomatically. That represents a 67% success rate. Hardly satisfactory, Thorak rumbled. In real combat, partial success often means total failure. True, Maya agreed. Would you like me to offer suggestions for improvement? The question hung in the air. Maya had positioned it perfectly, making it seem as though they were requesting her input rather than her imposing unwanted advice. Vextar's scales shifted through several color patterns as he weighed his options. Speak, he finally commanded. Maya activated the holographic display again, showing their approach to the forest exercise. The guerrilla tactics succeeded because they negated our individual strengths while exploiting our coordination weaknesses. Each team member operated independently, making us vulnerable to enemies who fought as a unified force. She highlighted specific moments where better coordination could have prevented failures. Grommak's visibility could become an asset rather than a liability, If we use it to control enemy movements, they'll naturally focus on the largest threat, which creates opportunities for other team members to maneuver. The display showed how Grommak's presence could serve as a distraction while other team members flanked enemy positions. Vextar's speed allows him to exploit the openings that Grommak creates. Rather than operating as separate assault elements, they could function as a coordinated strike team. Maya continued her analysis, demonstrating how each team member's abilities could enhance rather than compete with their teammates' efforts. Zephylos could provide mobile cover instead of static defense. Thorek could create tactical advantages instead of simply removing obstacles. Kesara could guide team movements instead of conducting isolated reconnaissance. This requires abandoning species' traditional tactics, Vexatar observed. It requires adapting traditional tactics to maximize team effectiveness, Maya corrected. Each species' natural abilities remain valuable, but their application changes based on team composition and mission requirements. Lyranus's psychic abilities detected the shift in team dynamics as Maya spoke. The human's quiet confidence and detailed analysis impressed even the most skeptical members. Her suggestions demonstrated deep understanding of each species' capabilities while proposing methods to overcome their limitations. These concepts merit testing, Lyranus announced. The human's analysis appears sound. Grommak shifted his massive frame, considering the implications. Working as a coordinated unit rather than individual warriors, it is not our traditional way. Traditional ways have served us well, Zephylos pointed out, but perhaps adaptation is necessary when facing adaptive enemies. Their third training exercise would test Maya's proposed modifications. The scenario involved defending a research station against waves of increasingly intelligent opponents, requiring sustained coordination under pressure. As they prepared for the challenge, Maya noticed subtle changes in her teammates' attitudes. They still viewed her as the team's support specialist, but her tactical insights had earned a measure of respect. Vextar consulted her during planning sessions, though he maintained overall command authority. Other team members began incorporating her suggestions into their individual preparations. Maya continued her quiet observations, noting how each species' military traditions influenced their approach to combat. She was beginning to understand the deeper patterns that shaped galactic warfare doctrine, insights that would prove crucial when their war games began. The research station defense exercise commenced at dawn, with Team 7 positioned throughout the facility's multiple levels. Maya had suggested modifications to their standard deployment, creating overlapping fields of fire and mutual support positions that maximized each member's effectiveness. Grommak took position at the main entrance, where his imposing presence would force enemies into predictable approach routes. Vexatar and Kesara established mobile response positions, ready to exploit opportunities that the primary defense created. Zephylos anchored the secondary perimeter, his regenerative abilities allowing him to maintain prolonged resistance. Thorek prepared demolition charges at key structural points, ready to deny territory to advancing enemies. Lyranus coordinated from the station's command center, her psychic abilities providing battlefield awareness for the entire team. Maya positioned herself in the communication hub, maintaining contact with Academy observers while monitoring team performance. Her designated role kept her away from direct combat, exactly as her teammates expected. The first wave of enemy drones approached using standard assault patterns, testing Team 7's basic defensive capabilities. Maya's coordinated positioning proved immediately effective, with each team member supporting their colleagues' efforts rather than fighting isolated battles. Grommak's defensive position channeled enemy forces into kill zones that Vextar exploited with devastating efficiency. When drones attempted to flank the main defense, they encountered Kesara's carefully planned ambush positions. Zephylos prevented breakthrough attempts, while Thorek eliminated clusters of enemies with precisely placed explosive charges. The first wave fell without causing significant damage to the research station or its defenders. Team 7's coordination had transformed individual capabilities into collective superiority, achieving results that exceeded the sum of their parts. The second wave employed more sophisticated tactics, attempting to divide Team 7's attention across multiple objectives. However, Maya's communication protocols allowed rapid redeployment of forces to counter each threat. Lyranis's psychic coordination proved invaluable, enabling split-second tactical adjustments that kept enemies off balance. By the third wave, the automated opponents had adapted to Team 7's tactics, employing counter-strategies designed to exploit their coordination methods. Maya watched from the communication hub as her teammates struggled with enemies that specifically targeted their cooperative elements. "Communication links are being jammed," Lyranis reported, strain evident in her melodic voice. "I cannot maintain psychic contact with all team members simultaneously." "They're adapting faster than anticipated," Vextar acknowledged, his scales shifting to colors that indicated tactical concern. "Our coordination advantages are being neutralized." Maya observed the battle's progression, noting how the adaptive enemies had identified and targeted the specific elements that made Team 7 effective. It was an impressive demonstration of machine learning, but it also revealed critical information about Void Hunter capabilities. The exercise concluded with partial success. Team 7 holding the research station, but suffering simulated casualties that would have compromised their mission effectiveness. During the debriefing, Academy instructors praised their improved coordination while noting the challenges posed by adaptive opponents. "Your team demonstrated significant improvement in collective tactics," Professor Kethvar announced, his bioluminescent patterns indicating approval. "The coordination protocols developed during training proved highly effective against conventional opponents." "However," added Commander Vorthok, a massive Krillian whose crystalline armor reflected the room's lighting, "adaptive enemies present unique challenges. Your tactics must evolve as rapidly as theirs to maintain effectiveness." Maya listened to the instructor feedback while analyzing the exercise's deeper implications. The Academy was preparing them for more than simple combat scenarios. They were being tested on their ability to innovate under pressure and overcome opponents who learned from their strategies. As Team 7 prepared for their next training session, Maya realized that her teammates were beginning to view her differently. They still considered her the support specialist, but they now recognized her value as a tactical analyst. Her quiet competence had earned their respect without triggering the defensive reactions that direct challenges might have provoked. The war games were approaching rapidly, and Maya knew that her true test was yet to come. When Team 7 faced real opponents instead of programmed simulations, she would finally have the opportunity to demonstrate humanity's unique approach to warfare. Her alien teammates had no idea that their shy, supportive colleague was actually a product of the most violent world in known space, trained in combat doctrines that would revolutionize galactic military thinking. The war games commenced on a harsh desert planet, designated Kepler 442c, its twin suns creating temperature extremes that challenged even the most adaptable species. 16 teams from the Galactic Academy had been deployed across the planet's surface, each tasked with defending assigned sectors against simulated Void Hunter incursions while competing for tactical objectives that would determine final rankings. Team 7 materialized on the planet's surface through military teleportation, their equipment scattered in supply drops that mimicked real deployment conditions. Maya quickly oriented herself while her teammates dealt with the harsh environmental transition. The planet's gravity was 15% higher than Academy standard, and the atmosphere carried trace elements that made breathing uncomfortable for most species. "Defensive positions established within the hour," Vexitar commanded, his scales already adapting to the desert's heat patterns. "Standard deployment protocols as practiced." Maya shouldered her communication pack and followed the team toward their assigned sector, a mining complex built into the planet's rocky badlands. The facility included underground tunnels, elevated platforms, and defensive barriers that could provide tactical advantages if used correctly. However, she noticed immediately that their practice formations would need significant modification for the terrain. Gromak struggled with the increased gravity, his massive frame requiring more effort to maintain mobility. Zeflos found the arid climate challenging, his plant-based physiology accustomed to more humid environments. Even Cassara seemed affected by the harsh conditions, her feline features showing strain as she scouted their perimeter. Environmental factors are more severe than anticipated, Lyranis observed, her gossamer wings shimmering with exertion. My psychic range is reduced due to atmospheric interference. Maya said nothing but began mental calculations based on her observations. Each team member's capabilities were being diminished by conditions that approximated the hostile environments where humanity had evolved. While her teammates adapted slowly to the challenges, she felt completely comfortable in the harsh surroundings. Their first engagement began without warning, as Academy doctrine dictated. Enemy forces materialized at the sector's perimeter, employing the adaptive tactics that had been developed based on previous Void Hunter encounters. Unlike the training simulations, these opponents possessed human operators using captured Void Hunter technology, making them genuinely unpredictable. Maya watched from the communication post as Team 7 implemented their practice defense strategies. Gromak anchored the main line, his reduced mobility partially compensated by prepared positions that maximized his natural armor. Vextar attempted rapid response maneuvers but found his effectiveness limited by the difficult terrain. The enemy forces probed Team 7's defenses methodically, testing responses and identifying weaknesses with disturbing efficiency. Maya realized these weren't standard military opponents following conventional doctrine. They were specifically trained to exploit the tactical habits that galactic species had developed over centuries of warfare. Communication interference increasing, she reported to Vextar. Enemy forces are jamming our coordination frequencies. Maintain contact through backup channels, Vextar replied, though his voice showed strain as he coordinated defensive responses. We cannot afford to lose tactical awareness. Maya observed the battle's progression with growing concern. Team 7's coordination was breaking down under pressure, reverting to individual species tactics as communication became difficult. Each member fought competently but independently, creating gaps that intelligent enemies could exploit. Thorax demolition charges eliminated several enemy clusters, but his positioning left him vulnerable to flanking attacks. Cassara's reconnaissance provided valuable intelligence, but she couldn't relay information effectively with communications compromised. Zeflos held defensive positions admirably, but his static approach allowed enemies to maneuver around him. We're being systematically dismantled, Lyranis warned, her psychic abilities detecting enemy movements that conventional sensors couldn't track. They're using our own tactical patterns against us. Maya made a decision that would change everything. Rising from her communication post, she activated her personal equipment and moved toward the battlefield's center. Her teammates noticed immediately, confusion evident in their expressions as their support specialist abandoned her designated position. Chen, return to your station, Vextar commanded. Maintain communication protocols. Communications are compromised beyond repair, Maya replied, her voice carrying clearly across the battlefield, despite the noise of combat. We need to adapt our approach. She moved with fluid precision that seemed impossible given the harsh terrain and increased gravity. While her teammates struggled with environmental challenges, Maya navigated obstacles as though the hostile conditions were her natural element. Her seemingly modest physical capabilities had been shaped by evolution on a world far more dangerous than anything the galaxy had produced. Maya reached Gromak's position just as enemy forces attempted to overwhelm his defensive line. Instead of providing support from behind cover, she moved directly into the combat zone with speed that shocked her teammates. Her movements were economical and precise, wasting no energy while achieving maximum tactical effect. The first enemy soldier encountered Maya expecting to face a frightened support specialist. Instead, he found himself confronting a product of humanity's violent evolution. Maya's response was swift and devastating, employing combat techniques that no galactic species had developed because none had needed such efficiency in killing. Her hands moved in patterns that seemed almost casual, but each gesture disabled opponents with clinical precision. She targeted nerve clusters, pressure points, and structural weaknesses that her alien enemies didn't know they possessed. Within seconds, 3 enemy soldiers were neutralized without Maya drawing a weapon. Gromax stared in amazement as the small human female eliminated threats that his massive strength couldn't reach. What training produced such capabilities? Survival? Maya replied simply, already moving toward the next tactical problem. She flowed across the battlefield like water, appearing where enemies least expected resistance and vanishing before they could coordinate responses. Her combat style bore no resemblance to any military doctrine taught at the Academy. Instead, it reflected millions of years of evolution on a world where humans had been both predator and prey. Maya's assault rifle remained holstered as she eliminated opponents through close combat techniques that combined efficiency with psychological warfare. Enemies who witnessed her approach experienced an instinctive terror that their training couldn't overcome. The recognition of an apex predator in its natural element. Vextar attempted to coordinate with Maya's unexpected assault, but found himself struggling to match her pace. She moved independently of their practiced formations, creating opportunities through methods that violated every principle of conventional tactics. Yet her effectiveness was undeniable. As enemy forces began retreating from positions they had previously held with confidence. "She's not following any recognizable combat doctrine," Thorek observed, his gravelly voice filled with bewilderment. "Those techniques, they're not military, they're survival methods." Maya reached Kesara's reconnaissance position, where the feline scout was pinned down by enemy fire. Rather than providing covering fire or flanking support, Maya simply walked into the open and approached the enemy position directly. Their weapons focused on her small figure, expecting an easy target. They discovered too late that humans had evolved on a world where being targeted by predators was a daily reality. Maya moved with the fluid unpredictability that had allowed her species to survive among creatures designed to hunt them. Each step seemed to place her exactly where enemy fire wasn't concentrated, creating the illusion that she was impossibly lucky rather than impossibly skilled. When Maya reached the enemy position, her response was swift and final. She employed techniques that utilized an opponent's strength against them, turning their advantages into vulnerabilities through leverage and momentum. Her alien opponents found themselves facing combat methods they couldn't comprehend, developed by a species that had refined warfare to an art form through necessity. "Maya!" Lyranis called through the psychic link, her mental voice filled with awe. "Your mind, it's unlike anything I've encountered. The tactical processing, the combat algorithms. How is this possible?" Maya paused briefly, enemy bodies scattered around her position. "Humans evolved differently than most species. Our world taught us that survival requires constant adaptation. The battle's tide had turned completely. Enemy forces that had been methodically dismantling Team 7's defenses now found themselves facing an opponent they couldn't predict or counter. Maya's presence transformed the engagement from a tactical exercise into something approaching art, as she demonstrated combat capabilities that redefined the possible. Vextar attempted to resume command authority, but discovered that Maya had already begun implementing battlefield strategies that exceeded his tactical knowledge. She wasn't disobeying orders so much as operating on a level of military thinking that his species had never developed. "Gromak, advance on the eastern approach!" Maya called out, her voice carrying absolute confidence. Your presence will force them into the canyon where Thorex charges are positioned. Kesara, circle north and establish overwatch on the high ground. Don't engage directly. Your value is intelligence gathering and target designation. Zeflos, establish blocking positions at the 3 major egress points. Use your regenerative abilities to hold ground that others can't. Each instruction demonstrated comprehensive understanding of her teammates' capabilities while implementing tactics that maximized their collective effectiveness. Maya wasn't just fighting as an individual. She was orchestrating a symphony of destruction that utilized every available resource. The enemy forces attempted to adapt to Maya's tactics, but found themselves facing combat doctrine that operated on principles they couldn't grasp. Galactic military thinking focused on applying superior force through technological or biological advantages. Human warfare, refined through countless conflicts on a hostile world, emphasized adaptability, deception, and the efficient elimination of threats. Maya moved through enemy positions like a force of nature, her presence transforming every encounter into a demonstration of human tactical supremacy. She employed psychological warfare, environmental manipulation, and combat techniques that turned opponents' strengths into weaknesses. Each engagement taught the enemy nothing useful because human tactics were based on constant change rather than predictable patterns. "This is impossible," one enemy soldier reported through intercepted communications. "The human female is employing combat methods that our tactical computers can't analyze. Every prediction model fails when applied to her behavior." Maya smiled grimly as she overheard the transmission. Human unpredictability wasn't a flaw in their military doctrine. It was its greatest strength. While other species developed tactics based on their natural advantages, humans had learned to fight without relying on any single approach. The engagement concluded with Team 7's complete victory, achieved through tactics that none of the Academy instructors could fully comprehend. Maya had demonstrated capabilities that redefined galactic understanding of human military potential, proving that Earth's harsh evolution had produced warriors unlike anything the galaxy had encountered. During the debriefing session, Academy officials struggled to analyze Team 7's performance. The tactical records showed impossible maneuvers, combat techniques that violated established doctrine, and results that exceeded theoretical maximums for their species composition. "Cadet Chen," Commander Vorthak announced, his crystalline features reflecting confusion. "Your combat performance requires explanation. The Academy possesses no training protocols that could produce such capabilities." Maya stood at attention, her expression calm and respectful. "I applied tactical principles developed through human military history, adapted to current circumstances and team composition. Human military history spans less than a century of space combat," Professor Kethvar observed. "Your techniques appear to draw from sources predating galactic contact." "Human warfare extends far beyond our space-age development," Maya replied. "My species has been refining combat doctrine for thousands of years, adapting to threats that most galactic civilizations cannot imagine. The revelation struck the assembled instructors like a physical blow. They had assumed that pre-spaceflight military development was primitive and irrelevant to modern warfare. The possibility that such primitive techniques could exceed their advanced tactical knowledge challenged fundamental assumptions about military evolution." "Are you suggesting that pre-spaceflight humans possessed military capabilities superior to galactic standard?" Commander Vorthak asked. "I'm suggesting that humans developed warfare techniques adapted to survival on the most hostile inhabited world in known space," Maya answered. "Those techniques translate effectively to modern combat situations." Over the following days, Team 7 faced increasingly challenging scenarios as the war games progressed. Each engagement demonstrated Maya's tactical supremacy while revealing new aspects of human military capability. Her teammates evolved from skeptical observers to devoted followers, recognizing that they were witnessing combat doctrine that could revolutionize galactic warfare. Maya's reputation spread throughout the war games as other teams encountered the impossible, a human cadet who fought with effectiveness that exceeded theoretical limits. Academy officials found themselves questioning centuries of military doctrine as they observed tactics that achieved superior results through methods they couldn't understand. The final engagement took place in an underground complex where multiple teams converged on a central objective. Maya led Team 7 through tunnels and chambers designed to test every aspect of military training, facing opponents who had specifically prepared to counter her unconventional methods. The battle became legendary among Academy records. Maya demonstrated combat techniques that seemed to violate physical laws, achieving tactical objectives through approaches that redefined possible. She moved through enemy positions like a shadow, eliminating threats with efficiency that approached the supernatural. When the war games concluded, Team 7 had achieved the highest performance rating in Academy history. Maya's individual scores exceeded measurement parameters, forcing Academy officials to develop new evaluation criteria. Her teammates had proven that cooperation with human tactical doctrine produced results that surpassed any single species' capabilities. The Academy's final ceremony took place in the Grand Assembly Hall, where cadets from all participating teams gathered to receive recognition for their performance. Maya stood with Team 7, still maintaining the quiet demeanor that had characterized her entire Academy experience. This year's war games have produced unusual results, announced Academy Director Zorthmek, whose ancient features showed confusion despite his centuries of military experience. Performance evaluations indicate capabilities that challenge our understanding of optimal tactical doctrine. Specifically, we have observed that human combat methods, when properly integrated with alien species capabilities, produce effectiveness ratios that exceed theoretical maximums. This discovery requires comprehensive revision of our military training protocols. Maya listened to the announcement without expression, understanding that her demonstration had achieved its intended goal. Humanity's place in the galactic military hierarchy had been established not through arrogant demands or political maneuvering, but through undeniable proof of capability. As the ceremony concluded, her alien teammates approached with expressions of respect that would have seemed impossible months earlier. They had witnessed humanity's true nature and recognized that their shy support specialist was actually a product of evolution's most effective military training program. "Maya," Vextar said, his scales displaying colors that indicated deep respect among reptilians, "my species owes you an apology. We judged humans by appearances rather than capabilities. All species make initial assessments based on available information," Maya replied diplomatically. "The war games provided better data." "Better data," Gromak chuffed in amusement. "You single-handedly redefined galactic military doctrine? I suspect there's more to human capabilities than even these demonstrations revealed." Maya smiled slightly, the expression containing mysteries that her teammates were only beginning to understand. Humans adapt to circumstances as needed. The galaxy hasn't seen anything yet that requires our full capabilities. The implications of her statement settled over Team 7 like a revelation. If Maya's devastating combat performance represented only a fraction of human potential, what might her species achieve when truly challenged? The answer would reshape galactic civilization's understanding of warfare, diplomacy, and the quiet species that had seemed so unremarkable upon first contact. As they prepared to leave the Academy and begin their military careers, Maya's teammates realized they had witnessed the emergence of a new era in galactic defense. Humanity's integration into the Alliance wouldn't be as subordinate supporters providing logistical assistance. Instead, They would become the tactical innovators whose unconventional methods might prove essential for survival against threats like the Void Hunters. Maya Chen had achieved her mission through patience, observation, and the devastating application of human combat doctrine when the moment was appropriate. She had proven that sometimes the most dangerous predators were those who appeared to be prey, and that humanity's greatest strength lay not in obvious physical advantages, but in the adaptive intelligence that had allowed them to survive on evolution's deadliest world. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to ensure that winning was the only possible outcome. And for the first time since the Void Hunter threat had emerged, the Alliance possessed warriors who understood that some enemies could only be defeated by those who had been forged in the crucible of endless war.